infamous or infamous Wednesday class that shall not be named, the class that keeps going, just like the bunny from the whatever battery. Which battery does he do? Ever Ready? What battery is the bunny?
Energizer.
Energizer bunny.
Energizer.
So we keep going on forever. So welcome to everybody who's joining us on YouTube, who we can't see. Welcome to Ron. Arlene and Flossie are not here today. Welcome to Lou and Eva and Michael and Arnold, who is not on camera. And everybody again who is watching on YouTube as we continue in this beautiful day where it's no longer in the 30s, it's in the 40s, which is a big difference.
Finally.
And there was a lot of wind last week and it was cold, so it was not as bad at the bus stop today. So as we continue our studies on whatever topic comes to mind, we're going to talk about Purim, which is obvious because Purim is coming up. Sunday night is Erev Purim. No, Monday night is Erev Purim. And
Monday night.
we have our Purim spiel, which will be Sunday at 11:30. We only have one person from some city participating this year. Art Menken's going to be the old Jewish guy.
Art lives in Hilton Head.
Art's in Hilton Head, so Art, that's right. So he's the only one Hilton Head, only one South Carolina guy.
So
But
far.
it should be a lot. And then we have our adult Purim event on Monday night. So you got RSVP for dinner, which we'll read the Megillah. It's a trivia night. As for other stuff coming up before we go into our class, we of course have, along with the Star Trek Purim Spiel, if anybody's interested, we've done 2 of the 14 weeks with our Introduction to Judaism class on Tuesday nights at 6:30, which is free. The Women of Mikveh Israel's Passover experience is Sunday, March 29th at 1:30. They're looking for volunteers. For anybody interested in being a reading tutor, Mikveh Israel is about to start partnering with the school district. First we'll be trained and we'll start in the fall for tutoring kids for reading. So those are some of the things upcoming. So hopefully you guys will join us for all of them, every single one, which is the expected participation level of this group. All right, we fix the camera and we're going to start today. Now we talk about Purim every year, but we're always trying to, Lou, did you have a question?
Not a question. Can I make a quick comment
Please.
that I think you will like? So the symphony, the Hilton Head Symphony this weekend did a whole show on immigrants. And it was, one of the pieces was Ellis Island. I forgot all the composers' names. But so the first half was composers that had immigrated to the United States, Igor Stravinsky and blah, blah, blah. And one gentleman's name was Eric Korngold. And so he wrote this beautiful piece, and it's Star Wars. It's the Star Wars theme and some Superman. I don't know Superman, but I
Nice.
know Star Wars. And John Williams stole all of that stuff from Eric Kornblum
Really?
ages ago. John Williams did not make that up. He stole it from Eric Kornblum, a nice
Wow.
Jewish boy.
Was there a lawsuit there involved? I'm
No,
sure
no,
there
I don't
was.
think so. No, I don't know when Eric lived. I mean, he may be long gone, but
Okay.
but it was so interesting. They're playing this piece, and it's Star Wars all over the
I'm
place.
going to listen to that online.
Yeah, yeah.
The Jews did a lot of music. We also did pretty good in the Olympics because we had obviously some Olympic medalists, including 2 on the U.S. hockey team, including the guy who scored the golden goal to win the gold. So, all right, or Eric Kornblum.
No, Korngold.
Eric Korngold. Okay, that is so. Everybody check out Aaron Korngold and Star Wars.
And it's Eric with an H, E-R-I-C-H. And he had a middle name, but I don't remember what it was. Anyway, I thought you'd get a kick out of that.
Composer. Let's see, Star Wars. I'm going to look that up online before we begin our class.
I'm just going to add that the goalie on the women's team is also Jewish.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, Frankel. I forget her first name.
Well,
It's
Eric
kind,
Wolfgang Korngold, m-
yeah.
music for the film King's Row was
Yeah,
one
that's the piece they played. I think that's a piece they played.
for Star Wars. All right. So we
Yeah.
got a gold medalist woman who was a goalie, and
Yeah.
we got a guy who influenced. I'm going to use that one for the rest of my life, Lou.
Okay, there you go. You got it.
And now we got a goalie. I need to put up the women's goalie picture on Facebook as I did with the guys. Although it's hard to top the picture of the guy who hit the winning goal because he had been hacked in the mouth, so he had a tooth missing and one tooth was the wrong way. He's got blood all over. He's smiling, and that's a nice Jewish boy, right?
There you go.
Love
You know,
that.
I don't know why the hockey players don't wear some mouth
Guard.
guard.
Yeah, I think it's like it's kind of like the tradition of being super tough and you want to lose your teeth. I don't know.
A
He
badge
lost,
of
he
honor.
lost,
Yeah,
He
badge of
lost-
honor.
he lost 4 or 5 teeth.
I know, and then he got penalized, I think, because he tried to do it back to the guy later, right? Is that what happened? I don't know. But yeah, he didn't seem too broken up about it, which is weird because I would have been very broken up about losing all those teeth and having just missing one tooth cost like $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 to get this one replaced. So
Only professional hockey players don't wear full face
yes,
guards.
but he wasn't even wearing a mouth guard.
Well, that might not have helped really,
Yeah, maybe
because he
not.
got whacked, and
I think it's just
it was an
what
it was an it was into it was an accident. It wasn't deliberate.
it
But
wasn't. It looked
no,
deliberate.
no.
You could take out the guy. Well, it was deliberate when he tried to do the other guy.
No.
I think he got the skates. He flipped them. Anyway, so we'll talk less about hockey because that's basically all I know. Although the first hockey game I ever saw, I'm from South Texas. I didn't even know what hockey was. I didn't even know you could ice skate. Was the Miracle on Ice. My dad said, "Come watch this game." I'm like, "Okay." We watched the Americans
Okay.
beat the Russians in the semifinals, not the finals. That was the first and probably only hockey game I saw for the first 30 years of my life. So let's go over a little bit about the book of Esther, but a different perspective. I think last year we talked about the spiel, but we're going to talk about Esther and the book from a much larger, more historical perspective. So, and what is the overall impact of the book of Esther, which is a lot more than we would think, and we'll figure out why that's a lot more than we think. So let's go over a little bit of what's going on in this book. Now, first of all, we all know it's a farce. It is not meant to be taken literally. The characters are almost comic. You have the king who's having a party for a year instead of running the country and has a beauty pageant to determine his future queen. We have the bad guy who is kind of like the obvious black hat Western bad guy who's so obvious. There's a lot of different dark comical moments. So nobody traditionally thinks of this as a literal story that is to be believed. It is got several layers of meaning, though, which are going to be very interesting as we go along. And so what is the setting of the book of Esther? So the setting is, of course, in Persia, but before that, Babylon. So in the year 586, the temple is destroyed by the Babylonians, and Nebuchadnezzar carries, not literally, takes a lot of the Jewish community into Babylon, which is at this time Iraq and Iran because it controls all of it. But a few years later, Cyrus and the Persians defeat the Babylonians. And so now they're in charge. Now, when Cyrus takes over, he says to the Jewish community, you can go back to Israel. I'm going to pay for you to go back to Israel. You can rebuild your temple and pay taxes. So some go back to Israel, but let's think about who goes back to Israel. So the people have been living in Babylon for 50 to 70 years. So the people who are young and healthy are 2 or 3 generations into living in Babylon, which is like New York City. It is the center of the world. And now Cyrus is saying, I want you to go back to West Texas, to the middle of nowhere, and you can rebuild your temple. And so who are the people who are going to go back? Because it's not even going back, because the people who could go back are probably too old, because the youngest would be in their 70s. So the people who go back are the people who are probably not succeeding, who are poor, or who are adventurers, or super holy. So the Babylonian community will still remain. Does anybody know when that Babylonian community ended? It ended in around the year 1948 with the establishment of the State of Israel. We had a large community in Iraq, Iran until then. So you're going to have Jews in Babylon and in Israel, and then you're going to have Jews in Persia and Israel. And we have very little knowledge of what goes on in this Persian world. Very little. We have a book of Tobit, which is not in our Bible. We have the book of Daniel, and we have the book of Esther. And they all have strange takes on it. And so we come to the book of Esther. We talk about who is Mordecai. Mordecai's great-grandfather had been taken into exile just before the destruction of the first temple. So he is now 3rd generation being born in Persia, 4th generation living there. His father was a disciple of a young king who had been conquered and taken to Babylon. So he is several generations into living in Babylon. He is Babylonian or Persian. He's Persian now, and they probably look at themselves. So they're Jewish living in Persia. Some Jews have gone back to Israel. There is still some connections. We know in the book of Daniel that Daniel prays towards Jerusalem, which is the first time we see praying towards Jerusalem. What do we do on Saturday morning when we come to services? We pray towards Jerusalem, because Daniel, who was part of the first Jewish community to live outside Israel, faced towards Jerusalem. And if Daniel could do it during his time in Persia, then we can do it as well. So we're living as a diaspora in Persia now, and we have this very strange book of Esther about life in Persia. You know, we see that they probably have jobs, they're living, they're probably doing all right, because we don't see persecution until the book. But what do we not see at all in the book of Esther? We see no religion. We know they're Jewish, but we don't see them praying. We don't see them going to study. We don't see them keeping kosher. We don't see them keeping the Sabbath. So the book of Esther is the only book in the Bible that doesn't mention God at all. They all do it on their own. So it's a completely secular book, except it's in the Bible, so it's not secular. So we have this book, which is more historical. It is telling us that there is a Jewish community living in Persia, and that they have in some ways assimilated. Why? Because we know Haman goes up to the king and says there's this people, they're called Jews, and they're not praying to the gods. So that helps us view, before Haman, there may not have been as much persecution. because Haman is the one who comes up and says they're being persecuted, so probably they weren't being as persecuted because Persia had a lot of people from other places that the Babylonians had brought into their country. So but what it also teaches us is they're Jewish. So they're Jewish living in Persia, which sounds strange that that's so amazing, but we have very little archaeological evidence, very little written evidence of what we were doing in Babylon and Persia. So what we do know is they're Jewish. They're in Persia, they are Jewish. By the way, Jewish, the word comes from the tribe of Judah, who were taken into Babylon and Persia, and they become Jewish. So really, this is the first Jewish community. So we know they're Jewish because we also know Mordecai tells his niece or cousin, Esther, don't tell the king you're Jewish. So you don't need to say that if you're not Jewish. So obviously they're Jewish. There's a Jewish community there. Doesn't speak a lot about how they're praying, but it does say that they are Jewish. So we've got this Jewish community living in this satire, this hilarious book, which is about a Persian court that is raucous, and they have parties all the time, and there's an impending annihilation ahead. We know they get rid of Vashti. Vashti will not dance naked in front of them, so the queen is fired or probably killed. So what else do we know about what's going on? Let's think of what else is going on. We have Esther, who is a young woman living during the time of Ahasuerus. It's probably Xerxes I, who reigned 485 to 465 BCE. She's the daughter of Abihail and adopted daughter of Mordecai, who is from the tribe of Benjamin. Now, when they're looking for women to be in this beauty pageant, the chief eunuch, Haggai, sees this woman and says, wow, she's pretty good. I like her.
It's pretty good.
She has a chance of winning the beauty contest, right? And she's told to keep her identity secret. She is chosen as the queen. What we are also seeing is that because it's a beauty pageant, there is an assumption possibly that the king is sleeping with all these women to find the one he likes best. So then again, we see a Jewish woman who is not married, who is sleeping with a king to possibly become the queen. Now, is it required of her to do it? Did she have a choice? Who knows? She could have hidden maybe, or maybe not. But we see that she is now becoming queen. So we have this farce where they have a beauty pageant, they have a queen, and then we have now the evil Haman. And who is this Haman guy? He comes out of nowhere, sort of. He is the Amalek. He is a descendant of Amalek, the king, according to tradition. Haman the Agagite. Who is Amalek? Amalek is the king who attacked the Israelites right after they left Egypt. He's considered the worst of the worst. Some would consider him actually the idea of evil incarnate. So Haman is a descendant of evil incarnate. So he is obviously evil because he's a descendant of the evilest evil guy ever, according to the book, even more evil than Pharaoh maybe. So in the story, he is becoming a big shot, and he of course wants Mordecai to bow to him. Mordecai refuses to do this, and Haman, instead of trying to frame Mordecai and send him to the gallows, he decides I'm going to kill all of Mordecai's people, which is, of course, taking something to the extreme. So taking it to the extreme, he's going to kill all of these people. And so later we find out that, of course, Mordecai had saved the king, and we have that funny scene where the king goes to Haman and says, what should I do for someone to be honored? And Haman says, you should put him on the king's horse and walk him through the land wearing the king's outfits, thinking that the king is going to reward him. He says, that's a great idea. I want you to do that for Mordecai, not knowing that's your bitter enemy. So Haman has to, ironically, bring Mordecai through the streets on the king's horse, wearing the king's crown, when he knows Mordecai is going to be killed in a short period of time. So again, it's all a farce. That's why we have this holiday. So what happens? Mordecai goes to the queen, his daughter, cousin, niece. He says, I need you to go talk to the king and stop this. And she acquiesces, tells everybody put on sackcloth, but there's a problem. What's the problem? That it's illegal to go to the king unless he has called you. Now, what does this tell us about Esther? Because he has not called Esther in 30 days. So what does this possibly mean? It possibly means she's now out of favor. She's gotten a little older, or he's found somebody else, and she's not number one on the list anymore, perhaps. Certainly not because he's busy running the country, because we all know he is not. So he's busy partying, right? This is not the brightest bulb, but again, Xerxes the First, it's not true. He probably was a decent king. I don't know. I never knew him. So she is risking her life to try and interrupt the king when she is out of favor with him, possibly. And so they have a party. She invites him and Haman to a party. I have a favor. She builds up the momentum. I'm not going to tell you my favor. I want you to invite you another favor. And then, of course, the second time she says, Haman's trying to kill me and my people. And then Haman goes to the gallows. And then joyfully and ironically, the king says, I've already sent out the edict that the Jews are going to die, that anybody can kill Jews. I am not allowed to stop my edict. I'm a king, but I can't stop my edict. So he makes another edict saying Jews can defend themselves. So the Jews defend themselves, and then the Jews come and say, King, we need another day to defend ourselves. Retribution. And so they defend themselves another day. So that's kind of the story in a nutshell, but we'll talk a little bit about some of the other issues. One, obviously, it's a female hero, which is very new. It's one of only 2 books where the book is named after a woman. Most importantly, as I mentioned, it's a book about life in Persia, outside of Israel, in the diaspora. They didn't have the word diaspora yet. And it speaks about maybe the lack of religion in this area, although they stay Jewish. And the fact that we see Esther willing to become part of a harem or become part of a beauty contest if it wasn't required of her. So this is an interesting piece of history as well as a biblical book, because it tells us a little bit about what's going on outside of Israel, where the upper crust or probably the most educated Jews are living. They're living in a powerful country, an educated country compared to the other ones. And now we see that while they're living there, they are prospering in this cosmopolitan society. But there is sometimes fear of pre-anti-Semitism. But in this case, is it anti-Semitism? It's not anti-Semitism. It's one guy's vengeance. It's not the king or whoever saying we hate Jews. It's Haman saying, I hate Mordecai. Mordecai is part of these people. I'm going to take revenge. So it's a little different than what we would call anti-Semitism, but we don't know if there was anti-Semitism in this world. Again, in the book of Daniel and the book of Esther, both books show Jews in peril, but both attacks are not due to anti-Semitism. They're due to jealousy against an individual. In the book of Esther, they're jealous. Haman is jealous of Mordecai's respect, and he hates him. In the book of Daniel, they are various groups. King's son, new king, king's grandson get jealous of Daniel, and certain people get jealous of Daniel's position, and they want to kill other people in the Jewish community. So this is what we're seeing from these any questions yet, by the way? All right, answered them all. All right, so why is Purim such an important holiday? And this is where it gets its most, we think the most prominence is also the Purim Spiel, which is also the most famous part of it. But to be a holiday, you had to be in the Torah. Shabbat, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Passover, Shavuot, Rosh Chodesh, they're all in the Torah. Purim is not in the Torah. It's in the Bible, but it's not in the Torah. And we see, what does the book of Esther become? It's about how Jews are living outside of Israel, but it's also about a holiday that is post-Torah. It's the first real post-Torah holiday. So at some point, and we know it was 2,000 years ago at the latest, we decided we can have holidays that are not in the Torah. They may not be considered major holidays, but we can have holidays for people living outside Israel even, because the holiday of Purim is completely about a community living in exile, or not exile anymore, living in the diaspora. So it says we can create new holidays. And so what other holiday? Hanukkah. Hanukkah is not only post-Torah, it's post-biblical. It's not in the Bible. And we can have a holiday about Hanukkah, and we can create new holidays in the future, like holidays in Israel, Yom HaAtzmaut, Israel Independence Day, or Memorial Days like Yom HaShoah and Yom HaZikaron, Israel Remembrance Day, Holocaust Remembrance Day. We can have other holidays like the Fast of Gedalia, like Tu B'Shvat, like Tisha B'Av. So it is permission for us to celebrate holidays not found just in the Torah. And that's one of the ways. And of course, Purim, until recently with Hanukkah, was the central fun holiday for Judaism for many centuries. Because we have this farce that somehow made it into the Bible. We don't know if they chose the book of Esther for the Bible because Purim was already a holiday, but it's chosen despite the fact that it's a farce and God is never mentioned. Because it says, one, we can have holidays that are not in the Torah, possibly. So it's incredible to see this book, which is a dark comedy with a lot of irony, becomes a holiday for us. And there's so many little points to it. We know from the story that there's some really wonderful parts as readers. And they use traditional, or at the time maybe not traditional, literary devices. When Queen Esther invites the king and Haman to a party, we as readers feel the tension because we know what she's thinking and what she's going to do. We know she's thinking, I'm Jewish. I never told him I'm Jewish. I haven't seen him for 30 days. I may not be his favorite queen anymore, but I'm going to tell him now and try and save my people. We as readers know this is about to happen. It's foreshadowing, but it may not be because we don't know what the answer is going to be. We don't know if he's going to say, I don't care about your people, die for all I care, or if he's going to say, I'm madly in love with you and I'm going to save you, which he does. So it's a fun book, but it's also an interestingly written book because it has a lot of the literary devices that we use today. And it's a wonderful story because it's also funny. And you have this idea that Haman is self-righteous, but we should be more righteous. But if you go, it's this idea of him believing he is too good, when in reality the people you're killing is probably the good ones. But he's making them sound like they're the bad guys. Also, it's one of those times in which the king or whoever's in charge is not actively seeking retribution or supporting anti-Semitism. The king is a dupe. He's being duped into doing this by a mad henchman. So that also is a little different when we come to the story. So the story itself is fabulous. Goes a little long at the end, but it's about, in many ways, us. We're living in a cosmopolitan country. We have the opportunity to give up our religion and just be part of the country. Some of us moved back to Israel, but most of us didn't, although Israel is now a modern country. But when they were starting the country of Israel, it wasn't. So most of the people who moved there were Eastern Europeans who weren't in such good situations. It's about how we need to work on being religious even though we live in this country. It's about how there are individuals in the diaspora who will rise and try and hurt us, as we see what's going on in the media today, and that we have to be heroes to stand up for ourselves, men and women together. Everybody in the Jewish community wore sackcloths to show support for what she was doing. So it is a story about us in many ways. Again, we're living in a major metropolitan, most Jews live in major metropolitan areas in America. Again, Hilton Head and Bluffton and Savannah are smaller, but they are metropolitan areas. And so this is a lot about what we on the outside now. It also shows that there's always a relationship between the Jews of Israel and the Jews abroad. We see that more from the book of Daniel. This is not really a religious book per se, doesn't really have that, but it does tell us that the people in Persia are descendants of the people who were in Israel and were forced to leave. We see that when they talk about the genealogy of Mordecai. And I read a really cute little quote in a Hasidic tale, The Humble King, Rabbi Nachum of Broadslow wrote, "If you want to understand the nature of a community, understand its humor." And this humor in this book is not just a Naked Gun, Airplane. What are some other great comedies? Old School. What are some of your guys' favorite comedies? Nobody can think of anyone. Some Like It's Hot, Duck Soup. Anybody? Everybody has to name one comedy they like. How about that?
Um,
My cousin
Hall.
Vinny.
My Cousin Busy. Louis, what'd you say?
Annie Hall.
Annie Hall.
That was my wife's on my first date was to see
Really?
Annie Hall.
Really?
Yeah,
And Diane Keaton just died.
yeah,
Diane, right? She just died.
Ron,
yeah.
what is one of your favorite comedies?
Oh, anyone with I'll go with My Cousin Vinny. That
All
was
right, two
that
for My
was a
Cousin
riot.
Busy.
Two for My Cousin Vinny.
Eva, how about you? You're on mute.
But by the
Well,
way,
Okay, I did
Any
get
Abbott,
myself on mute. I have no idea, really.
any
I
Abbott,
used to love like Jerry Lewis stuff, but
Oh, Jerry Lewis, nice Jewish boy.
yeah.
there were so many great ones with
Yeah.
Abbott and Costello
Abbott and
and
Costello,
you
those are the
know,
ones I grew up on. They were on TV.
the Stooges. You know,
Yeah.
you can't beat those.
Yeah.
So many great. So the comedy in this book would be closer to a Woody Allen comedy because it's got multiple layers of meaning. Whereas Old School, or my favorite maybe Wedding Crashers or The Naked Gun, is just hilarity without any meaning. This has got threads of meaning. It is a very different book than any other book in the Bible by far, because it's a satire, a dark comedy with a lot of layers. I went and saw Send Help this week. We rarely get to go see a movie that doesn't have, cartoon characters. But my kids were at a night out thing, so we went and saw it's a dark comedy. I don't know if it had meaning, but I felt like this is Purim. It's a very dark comedy. There is a lot of stooges. There's stooge humor and there's Marx Brother humor, but then there's some Woody Allen humor and then some really dark humor in here. And that the people who were supposed to die didn't die, but then they got to go kill the people who were going to kill them. And they need an extra day to do that. And so by the end, Mordechai is elevated to Grand Vizier for King Ahasuerus, who is Xerxes the First. So in the end, it shows another thing that, as we see in the book of Daniel, the Jews in Persia are doing pretty well. They're successful. Daniel is in dire straits in the book of Daniel because he's so successful and people know he's Jewish. Here, they're living like everybody else, and it's not till Haman comes there's persecution, and then once the persecution is settled, Mordechai becomes, second command. Obviously, we have no written evidence of this ever happening. It's probably not intended to be true. But it's really interesting to see that the Jews are doing well. And so it teaches us that there are Jewish communities in other places that can be successful. We can have holidays based on things that go on in other places. You could argue that Passover obviously happens in Egypt, but they're going to Israel. Here, they're not planning on leaving and going to Israel. They're going to stay in their community for the next 2,500 years until the 21st century, till the 20th century. Now, when it comes to what we do on Purim, we know what we do. Purim has become the party holiday, proving they knew it was a farce 2,000 years ago. You have plays based upon the story that are supposed to be funny. You drink alcohol excessively. In the modern day, it is the holiday of the DD, or the designated driver, or we could call it the Uber holiday. I just made that up. The DD one I've done before, but the Uber holiday is a good one. I think I'm going to use that in the future.
There you go.
I'm going to use that on Saturday, where you dress up and you literally eat Haman's hat. We have a cookie that is Haman's hat. And you are supposed to drink and dress up in costumes. And later, men are allowed to drink as women. And the seminaries, you're supposed to make fun of your professors. So it's all based upon a farce with layers of meaning. You can live outside Israel and create your own holidays. But in Daniel, you still stay connected to Israel. You can be Jewish other places than Israel and be successful. Although once in a while you have to fight issues of jealousy, or in our case, anti-Semitism. That all holidays don't have to be desperate moments where we fast. That we could have fun at a holiday, even though and that holidays do not have to be based in the Torah. You may not be able to be a major holiday. We can go to work on Purim, but it's still a fun holiday that everybody knows about, and that really kids look forward to more than any other holiday in ancient times. Today, obviously, Hanukkah's taken over that mantle. So as we celebrate Purim in whatever way we do with frivolous intent, let's remember that this is a very deep, ironic, puzzling story with so many issues. How can we consider them Jewish if we don't see them keeping kosher? Which, by the way, the Septuagint, which is the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible, kind of adds some words to say they're basically keeping kosher. We're talking about a Jewish woman who enters into a beauty contest knowing she's going to have sex with a king to possibly become queen. So we know it's a book that doesn't mention God. So there's a lot of ironies here in so many ways. Do we have any questions before we conclude? I've answered all of them. So what we're going to do this year is on Saturday morning at 1:30. Everybody's welcome to Shalom School, as we're going to do a Star Trek Purim. I want to make sure everybody knows that I did not pick the theme. I'm a Star Wars fan, but the rabbi at the other synagogue is Star Trek, so I wrote a Star Trek Purim. A lot of the costumes come from my closet, to be perfectly honest, and my wife's closet. And then on Monday night, I think it's 6-ish, I don't know what time it's at, I have it right here, the announcements. We're going to have a fun night of reading Megillah and having a trivia night, which was so successful last year. We try and do something different every year or two. Last year we had a trivia night, so we're going to do it again, and that is 5:30 on Monday. Please RSVP for dinner. 2 years ago we had the drag queens from Club One come, and we had a giant party. And another year we had a casino night at a car dealership on Broughton Street that had moved, and they were renting out their buildings so they have us for the night. So Purim is an amazing holiday. We hope to see you at any, and if not, at least we studied here a little bit about Purim, which is mentioned in the Talmud and the text, as we know. If you go into the Talmud, they have a whole section of Megillah, which is a whole section on the book of Purim, the book of Esther, telling us that yes, women need to participate and listen to the Megillah just like men, that we're supposed to give gifts to the poor, which we call shalach manot, that we're supposed to be So drunk we can't tell the difference between cursed be Haman and blessed be Mordecai. That we reenact the story. So these are all things that we know go way back. So for those of you wondering what part I have in the play on Sunday, I am going to be the sub if anybody doesn't show up. I'm the director, and we're going to have two songs from K-pop Demon Hunter, which is a very popular one in the Cantor. What is the theme this year? She lost out to Star Trek Purim, but we put in 2 K-pop Demon Hunter songs. So I want to wish everybody all the best for the rest of the week. We hope you guys have a great one. And I need to talk to Flossie. I know we were thinking of March, but March did not work for.
Well, she's on a cruise. She won't be
Yeah,
back
so she gets
until
back,
next
we'll
week.
figure out she's hosting one. We were talking about March, I think 25th, to have it at her home, but I think Lou, you were not available, right?
I didn't know.
Okay. So
Let me
us
think
know.
about it. Oh, I have a
Okay.
doctor's appointment that day at 1:30.
So we could move it to the 11th also, or we'll see or the 18th. So let me know.
Okay, let me
Everybody
look at the
know.
calendar. Well, is anybody willing to come to Hilton Head? Because I don't know that they want to schlep to Hilton Head.
I am.
Well, I don't hear anybody else wanting to
All
come.
right, so I
Oh,
think we're
we'll
all
come.
shipping to Sun City. How far is Hilton Head from Bluffton? Like 25 minutes?
Yeah, depending on,
On traffic.
All right, well,
I mean,
we'll
I'm
figure it
fine
out for
doing
March.
that.
What
Huh?
takes the most time is trying to find her house.
Oh, and my house isn't hard to find. It's harder to find you guys' house in Sun
It
City.
is definitely
Where
hard to
where
find
are
the
you
house.
in Hilton Head?
Off of Marshland Road. It's technically
That's
Indigo
cool.
Run, but it's a separate section of Indigo
Yeah,
Run.
that's not very far.
It's not hard to find.
So we'll
All right,
figure it
I'll look
out.
at the calendar.
All right. All
I'll
right,
let you know.
guys. Everybody
Yeah,
be
and
safe.
I'll look at my calendar for, late April or May. I'm not sure. I mean, I know we're having
That'd be
company
great.
in May for a couple of weeks, I think, and then maybe late April. Well, I won't let you know till April, so
Okay, well, let us
I
know.
guess that takes care of that.
And for everybody on YouTube and here, even if we go to somebody's house, we still will have the class on YouTube, just like we did a couple weeks ago. So we'll see what we study. If anybody has any ideas of long-term things to study or 1-week things to study, let me know. Michael, you had something? What would you like to do?
Yeah, my wife has been reading and rereading classics. And she just made an observation this morning that all these books that she's reading, the Jews are portrayed in not a very nice way.
Oh, great.
And, we talked about Jews in literature a few years ago, but, without making assignments to having to read stuff like Madame Bovary,
But we'll do that again next week.
maybe we could do something on that.
Jews in classic literature, the most famous depictions in Merchant of Venice and in
I have to do the Merchant of
Oliver
Venice.
Twist, but we
But,
can also talk about Ivanhoe and some of the other ones. We're not mentioned that often, and often it's just a passing phrase, but we do have some here and there. So we'll talk about that next week.
Okay.
And I'm sure everybody can bring in books I have not read. So looking forward to it. All right, that'll be fun. All right, so everyone
too.
have a great afternoon. I want to thank everybody who joined us on Zoom in person. So thank you to Michael, Ron, Eva, and Lou, a small group, but an awesome group. Thank you also to everybody else who was on YouTube today, Arnold and Jonathan Schwartz. And thank you to everybody who joined us on YouTube. So I want to wish everyone all the best. Hopefully we'll see you for Purim. And if not, we'll see you next week on the Wednesday class that shall not be named. Have a good one, everybody.
Well.
Bye.
Yeah, everybody.